We are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration meeting for Tuesday, June 11th to order. I would like you to rise as you're able for the reading of the invocation. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who served our country and who are no longer with us so that we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. And just before roll call's been taken, I'd like to give condolences to Councillor Martin, who is online on the passing of his mother yesterday. So our condolences from council and the entire city and our city staff.
Thank you.
Has the roll been taken?
Through the chair, roll call has been taken.
Members of committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for items appearing on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, are there any items for consideration or consent you would like separated for discussion purposes? Councillor McCreary.
Excuse me, 7.1.5, please.
Councillor Zuccoli.
I have 7.1.1, please.
Councillor Carpenter.
7.1.4, please.
Okay, so we have three that will be separated because we do have delegations. So 7.1.7, 7.1.8, and 7.1.9 will automatically be separated. And I would like 7.2.2 separated. Councillor McCreary, can you please move the motion to approve all items for consideration consent not separated for discussion purposes and state your seconder?
Madam Chair, thank you. Councillor Martin's the seconder, and I proclaim it is so moved.
Clerk, can you please read the title of the items that are subject to the vote and then proceed with the vote?
Through the chair, the items that are subject to the vote are 7.12, various corporate and human resources policy updates, 7.13, portable signs, 7.16, development application fee review, 7.10, proposal to rename Longboat Run to Longboat Run East, 7.11, safe reporting program annual update, 7.12, media council priorities update, 7.13, sports and entertainment center update, 7.21, human resources metric report, and 7.23, the minutes.
Okay, we have no statutory public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Martin, if I can please have your vote. Sorry, Councillor Martin. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, my iPad's not working right.
The motion carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Ventelberg, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Martin Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Secoli.
Okay, moving on, number 5, there are no statutory public hearings on the agenda. Item 6, we have 3 delegations for tonight's meeting. Before hearing the delegations, I would like to remind those in the meeting that the following rules of decorum are set forth in the city's procedural bylaw. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than meeting materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in conjunction with any presentation made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or making of any gestures that is just disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So our first delegation is item 6.1.1, and I will ask Tim Howie, Jeff Berta, and Stefani Blazevich, and I apologize if I butchered anybody's name, from True North Disc Golf, to please come forward to speak to item 7.1.9, the Downtown Facade and Safety Improvement Grant Program application. You will have 10 minutes to present, inclusive of questions.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for meeting with me. I'm not familiar with the process, so how would I start out?
Sorry, so you're here speaking to an item that's on the agenda, so you can give us a presentation, even just a verbal presentation in terms of your what it is that you'd like to council to be aware of. So we do have 10 minutes, and after you're done your presentation, members of council, if time permits, will have an opportunity to ask questions. Okay.
I understand. Thank you. So Stephanie Blazevich, she's purchased a building on 49 Charlotte in December of 2023. So that's just about 6 months ago. And in that time, our goal has been to restore the building and open a disc golf business. We did have that business on the north end on Woodyat Street, number 51, and we moved that after we bought the building in December of last year. The goal behind that is to keep that business going because we really love disc golf. It's been a popular sport in the community, and it's turned into a destination business now where people come from cities all around to play. Our goal with that is also to expand into pickleball. I know pickleball is a very popular sport, and we want to grow that. Yeah. I personally like the sport a lot, and our goal is to add that to our business operations for this summertime. So that's number one point. The business is bringing a lot of destination people from other cities to downtown. And I think that's kind of part of the alignment of the goal. Just to add to this, I've worked for the city for about 18 years now. I'm a technician for the Sanderson Center next door. My primary background is a stagehand, but recently in the last couple of years, I've been focusing on lighting and getting better in that technology. One of the things that I wanted to do is we've had an issue with homeless people sleeping around the building, graffitiing it, leaving garbage and so forth. And we've made efforts to try to help people and deal with that issue, but it just doesn't seem to go away. So one of the things we thought might help would be to put lighting around the building to improve that and make it safer. We also believe that we could upgrade the lighting on the exterior of the building so that we could do some of the techniques that I do at the Sanderson Center, where we can display things like images. We use technology called a digital gobo, which allows us to take an image or even a small video and play it through a light. We could put it onto the sides of the building. We could put it onto the sidewalks. I'm not really sure exactly what the bylaws would permit. I haven't explored that exactly, but whatever we are permitted to do, that could be an opportunity to market local businesses and also to market the local brands that we're selling. We also have a heritage home across the street from us, and we'd very much like to be respectful of the laws of that and the bylaws. Again, that's something that I've been kind of looking into lately to see, but if there's an opportunity to work alongside that and improve the decor of our building, we'd like to do that. In our proposal, it's a combination of two things. One is to upgrade the lighting on the exterior of the building. We're going to spend much more than what we've requested, with the idea of basically just making the building back to where it needs to be. Modern, clean, well-lit, and bring it into alignment with, which is what I kind of see has been happening to the downtown core for the last 20 years. It's one of the reasons why we chose to move down there, because there's been a lot of effort invested in making it better. The other side is to upgrade the siding of the building. We wanted to do that because the brickwork is quite old. The building is, I don't know the exact date it was constructed, but it's fairly old. I'd say it's well over 60 or 70 years. So I think with the upgrade of the siding and everything, that would be a big help. In a nutshell, we couldn't be able to afford to do it if we did it on our own, but this grant opportunity is something we wanted to apply for and see if we could take advantage of, because it would allow us to invest in that. That money will also be spent with businesses that align with what we do and should be helpful. We're also going to take that investment, and there is another client that we have in the building that we've rented it out to use for the vape industry, and we'd like to close that. We'd like to replace that with a pickleball business. So if we do get the funding, that's one of the things we're going to invest in. We're going to change that business into a pickleball store, and hopefully we'll be able to I just want to get the sport more local so you can buy rackets and gear and equipment. And I know there's a lot of people out there that play, and I think we need to have access to that. I think that's the majority of the presentation. We basically want to improve the outside of the building, improve the lighting, and I'd like to use some of the techniques and knowledge I have from the Sanderson Center to make the building look really cool and make it modern. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sorry, we do have time for questions. Counselor Carpenter.
So the grant funding makes it you so that you can actually do this work?
Yeah, it gives us the extra cash we need to be able to afford it, because these are probably $30,000 or $40,000 investments. That's not enough cash that we have to afford to do that. But with the grant, we can take about half the cost away, and then we can afford that.
And that provides improvements for the city?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Counselor McCreary.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So do you expect that you might be offering pickleball lessons for folks like Counselor Sicoli who could use some skill improvement?
To be honest, our goal is to get the pickleball business launched, and then I was hoping to come back with a proposal to find some land somewhere in the city that we could convert into 3 or 4 courses. And my hope was to do, I wanted to do a pickleball court that's always available, sort of where you could buy a membership for the month and you could play whatever you want. And then you could pick up the rackets and gear and stuff that you need to play and then play whenever you want. Because right now it's great
How
sport.
coincidental, we had a discussion last week about making possible use of 1 or more of the summertime rinks at Gretzky Center.
Mhm.
So if you want to email me,
Mhm.
we can let you know how that discussion works out, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How would I get that information?
I would suggest you use your resources to find it.
I will do that. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, I do see that Stephanie has joined online. I don't know if Stephanie had any.
Yeah,
words to
hi.
add. You do have a few minutes left of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Counselor. So one thing that I wanted to add that I don't think was brought up previously is the fact that one of the main concerns, and I know that the grant, and when I was speaking with Michelle from the city, is just the fact that we have a lot of employees that are leaving in the evening, so 6, 7, 8 p.m. And behind the building where they're parking and alongside if they're walking to the bus, because a lot of them are taking the bus, there are no lights. So that was one of our main concerns when we did look at this grant in putting lights up against the street that then can obviously light up the area, right? So that's one of the main things. And even in the front of the building, I mean, we're really focusing, if you've taken a look at the photos that we've input into the grant, at night, that alleyway is very, very dark. There's a lot of individuals that are coming out of the parking lot right behind us. It's actually an apartment building. It's probably about 20 stories or so. So there's a lot of traffic, and you can't see people walking, especially staff members. Not to mention, you know, the homelessness at the back of our building. We can come in the morning and, you know, we find random items like needles or blankets or whatever they've left behind. And, you know, we do throw those items away in the garbage. So from a safety standpoint, that was one of the main areas that we wanted to tackle with lighting, with siding to kind of give it a little bit of an uplift, to let individuals in the local community know that we've obviously entered the area and we're trying to revitalize it with a sport. We're not, I mean, it could be several different things, but we're a sport. And I think we have a lot of Brantfordians that are coming in on a regular basis. And we, of course, want them to be safe when they're leaving our store at night as well. Not only employees, but customers as well.
Potentially time for, if anyone had any questions of Stephanie, we have time for maybe one or two questions. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, and we will be dealing with this matter shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors, for your time.
Okay, 6.1.2. I will now ask Richard Pappas from Lakeview Development Holdings to please come forward to speak to item 7.1.8, the downtown CIP tax increment-based grant application for 33 Erie Ave. Is Mr. Pappas online?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks. My name is Rick Papa. I'm the principal at AFA Architects and project architect for 33 Erie Avenue. We did forward some slides for presentation. Okay, great. So I'm here on behalf of the developer Lakeview Developments to give you a brief introduction of the development and answer any questions you may have about the project. Next slide, please. Building at 33 Erie Avenue, which broke ground this month, is part of a larger phase development known as Grand Bell. In total, the development consists of 5 mixed-use condominiums in the block enclosed by Market Street South, Erie Avenue, and Veterans Memorial Parkway. Next slide, please. The complete development consists of 1,000 units, 1,000 residential units, approximately 25,000 square feet of commercial space, 700 residential parking spots, and approximately 60,000 square feet of amenity space. Next slide, please. The first building constructed in the block, 7 Erie Avenue, was completed last year by Lakeview Developments. I've included a few shots here for reference from a recent site visit. The first image is from Erie and Market facing east. Next slide, please. On the left, an image of the building facing west along Erie Avenue. And on the right, an image of the main residential entry. Next slide, please. The subject property, 33 Erie Avenue, is the building and property directly southeast of 7 Erie Avenue. The residential tower is situated at the north portion of the site, fronting Erie Avenue. There's a rear adjoining 3-story parking structure at the south portion of the site, containing commercial and residential parking totaling 200 spots. Next slide, please. The tower is an 18-story mixed-use building consisting of 226 residential units with a total GFA of approximately 180,000 square feet. The first floor retail space is approximately 5,500 square feet and contains 4 to 5 retail shops. The second floor office space is approximately 6,000 square feet with approximately 5 to 6 professional offices. Next slide, please. Residential interior and exterior amenities are located at the fourth floor over the parking structure. The interior amenities consist of study areas, lounge areas, large communal kitchen, and dining spaces, and a fitness center. The building contains dedicated bike parking for residents and visitor bike parking as well. Storage lockers for the residential use. Next slide, please. The exterior amenities of the building include barbecue areas, exterior fitness areas, lounge areas, landscape spaces, and a playground with a splash pad area. Next slide, please. Suites range from 1 to 3 bedrooms, all with exterior balconies. Shown here is an example of the quality of space from one of the family size units. Next slide, please. So lastly, I leave you with a shot at architectural photographer took of the Grand River, with 7 Erie to the far right, and the downtown in the distance. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the development.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. So how many stories is this development?
That's 18 stories.
18 stories. There was a building on site. Was that just recently demolished?
That's correct. Yeah.
And did you know what that building used to be?
It had a variety of uses over the years. It was a store. It was a part of it was a service station.
And a grocery store.
In a grocery store, correct.
Yeah, so I just like to ask you this question, you don't have to sort of agree, but I just would like to let you know that that used to be Gordon Guscott grocery store. And Mr. Guscott would take checks from the neighborhood that lived in Eagle Place in that area. And you could post date the check a week later, buy $25 worth of groceries, write a check for 50 and he'd give you 25 back. I always call them the first unofficial food bank. So just as a thought, I know sometimes you name apartment buildings, but if you think of a name for the apartment building, just give some thought to the Guscott building. That's my only request. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are any of these particular units going to be deemed affordable or subsidized or any form of attainability for the lower tier income?
Thanks for your question, Michael. They are not officially deemed affordable units. However, they will be market rentable. In most cases, these buildings, probably about 70% of the units end up being market rent.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Seeing no other questions, I just had one quick question, and that was related to whether the building units would be rental or condominiums.
And then the building is previously sold, so it's sold out, but it is a condominium. But like I said, most of these units end up in the market for rental. Probably about 70% of those units.
Okay, so they are condos. It's interesting.
That's
that
correct.
they're out. So you feel that 70% of them have been sold to investors that will then rent them, and another 30% of the units will be bought by people who will reside in them themselves. Is that
Yeah, I can only speak on the precedent of other buildings like 7 Erie. So that's my estimate based on that precedent.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter.
Question that I know my ward mate, Councillor Hunt, would want me to ask. Could you consider making the doors all at least 36 inches wide so that they become fully accessible?
Are you talking about the suite doors themselves or
Yes.
the,
Yeah, the suite doors, the hallway doors, like if you make doors 36 inches, then there's no need to do a tremendous amount of structural work to make them accessible, and we have a lot of accessible individuals that need to rent or buy locations that make them accessible. Just a thought.
yeah, so I can, if you want me to speak to that, all the doors, all the public doors, so, you know, the entry doors, any door leading to, common areas, those types of things, they're all at least, 36 inches, wide. The suite unit doors themselves, there's an OBC requirement for, the width of doors. And that clearance is 36, roughly 36. It's not, it's metric. And then the remaining doors are a little less than 36, I think 2 inches less than 36.
So I'll just clarify Councillor Carpenter's question, which is that if the units are built with the principles of universal design, which means they have a minimum of 36-inch interior and exterior doors to the unit, then that makes them accessible for people who are perhaps walking with a walker. They're not knocking their knuckles off of a door frame, or somebody that wants to perhaps move into a unit and has the ability to maneuver around if they're in a wheelchair. So it's basically considering the principles of universal design a little bit above the building code specifications, but thanks. Okay, seeing no other questions on that matter, we will be dealing with this one shortly as well. In our third delegation of the evening, I would like Alma Arguello from Brantford Native Housing, West Street Developments, to come forward to speak to item 7.1.7, non-routine demolition application for 247 and 253 West Street. Online, oh, sorry, the online, okay.
Hello, Madam Chair. I think my other delegation should be in there. Start video.
Elma, he is, and he's just coming to the front.
Thank you. They will be speaking on my behalf, and I'm here as well.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your time tonight. This is an application for a non-routine demolition of 247 and 253 West Street. Currently, there's 2 residential dwellings, one on each of those properties. They consist of 4 units in each building. We are proposing to demolish those buildings in preparation for a consent application to develop a 36-unit apartment building in the coming future. Those units will be phased, so it'll consist of phase 1, 16 units, and then phase 2, 16 units. So right now we're in the process of doing the design and the engineering work related. Brantford Native Housing has secured funding from various groups. So this supports our application and proves that they do intend to develop this in the near future. So right now, the 2 buildings are vacant, and they've been heavily modified and deteriorated over the years. So they're looking to demolish these sooner rather than later in preparation for their developments. I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Zach, and apologize for not introducing you. I didn't have your name before you got started. We do have time for questions. Councillor Carpenter?
So Zach, so what are we building there now? It was approved for a 6-story building.
So I believe that was the previous owner. So now Brantford Native Housing is the owner of this one, so it's a different it'll be a different application. And they're working with their engineers right now to develop that. So Alma, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that engineering will be done in the next couple of months, and then they'll go forward with their site plan applications, et cetera.
So this will
Well-
be certainly smaller than the 6 stories, if they're talking about 36 units and building it in 2 sections.
Yes, so Paulson Construction's been hired to do the demolition only of this. But we understand that it'll be 36 units. I'm not sure of the height. Alma can maybe speak on that.
So the height we're hoping to do for 4-story building, just due to funding purposes as a nonprofit housing corporation. The build is going to be staged out. We currently receive $9.4 million from NICHI, the National Indigenous Housing Corporation, to do this build under the Urban Indigenous Housing envelope. And this will be subsidized housing for urban Indigenous folks in our area. The reason why the build is phased out is phase 1, we are able to provide he has said 16 units. Phase 2, we will look for funding, and there's various different envelopes, and we're also exploring the co-investment through CMHC for phase 2. And we would love to have a build, upwards, no problem, and then put all the units, but unfortunately, money will not permit us. But if we space that out, we're able to provide a nice welcoming space for our urban Indigenous folks, especially folks who are currently living with physical disabilities, and they're not able to find housing in community.
Okay, thank you. And I know that the 6 stories was already approved, but this seems to be less intrusive than the 6 stories, and I think the neighborhood would be welcoming something less intrusive than what was approved previously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McCreary.
Chair, thank you. Welcome, folks. Is the building habitable now?
No, it is not. It is very heavily deteriorated on the inside and outside, and it would take extensive work to get it back up and rentable.
What sort of work would that be on the inside?
Everything. So it is covered in debris. It's been broken into. There's garbage everywhere, paraphernalia, mold, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, no, it's to the point where it can't be safe.
And on or about what date did you folks come into the buildings? Purchase, I should say.
We purchased the building on April 12th, I believe.
Okay. And did you buy it with the approved project as part of the property?
No, we were able to only buy the land because that would have been a $26 million build, and we only could only apply for $9.4 million.
So you're a couple of bucks shy of 26 mil. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
Councillor Sakoli.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Alma.
Hi.
You were approved for 9 million and you have a deadline of December 31st, 2024. What happens if you're delayed and you can't finish or start the building by December 31st?
2025, sorry. So as long as we could actually prove to the funder that we are actually moving forward in trying to erect a building that would be occupied, according to the funder, that if we're able to show that a significant of the funds is being spent in this progression in the building, they actually also advised us that they are foreseen circumstances that sometimes do come in construction, so they are able to be lenient with us during that process. But the whole point of NICHI is that we're able to build housing for urban Indigenous folks as fast as possible, especially in Brantford, as you know, that has 52% of the homeless population identify as urban Indigenous homelessness.
Absolutely. Are you at risk for losing any funding if we can't move this along for you? So
Yes.
would you say there's an urgency for us to support you tonight in moving this forward?
Absolutely. We're hoping that if this is approved tonight, then we should be able to bring this application for site approval, hopefully in September. And if we are able to bring that in site approval and we'll put shovels in the ground and, before the winter, then we actually have a very good shot to be meeting the deadline that we need. but there is an urgency within this application to have this approval for us.
Thank you for all you do in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just had a couple of quick questions, Alma. So I heard you say that you're planning on building a number of accessible units, and you've mentioned the statistic that we're well aware of the shortage of affordable accessible housing for certainly, as you said, Indigenous, not just everyone there's a chronic shortage of accessible housing. So all of these 36 units will be subsidized affordable housing units, which is going to greatly add to our inventory. So that's great. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you. And again, we will be dealing with this item shortly.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so we have no presentations on tonight's agenda. The committee will now consider the items that were separated for discussion. Councillor Samwell, can you please read the motion to place all separated items for consideration consent not previously voted on the floor, and state your seconder?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg that all items for consideration and consent 7.1 and 7.2 separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Okay, so we'll now take up the separated items, beginning with 7.1.7, non-routine demolition application for 247 and 253 West Street, as there was a delegation. So yeah. Discussion. Looking around the room. Sorry, Councillor Van Tilburg.
Just to say, let's get her done. I think this is great. I think it's worked out better for everyone all around. So I'm very, very happy to hear of this change.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, we can call the vote on that item.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Through the chair, item 717, non-routine demolition application for 247 and 253 West Street carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCreary, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Secoli.
Okay, carrying on to our next item that we had delegation on 7.1.8, the downtown CIP tax increment based grant application for 33 Erie Ave. Councillor Samwell.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I wanted to say that I'm pleased to support this project tonight. I was happy to see this application for the grant come through. I think it's a great use of the CEPTED principles, and I look forward to seeing this come to light. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
I just have to reiterate my plug for calling it the building, the Guscott building. Roy Guscott ran the grocery store there for many, many, many years. I served with him on the Public Utilities Commission. He was quite the gentleman. And I remember as a young boy dating my wife, Jenny, before we were married, long before we were married, going to the Gordon Guscott grocery store with a check for $50 for the week following the time I was there, buying $25 worth of groceries and getting $25 to take home and the groceries. And when I talked to Roy about that and told him the story later on, he said, "Hey, yes, Richard, one year I had $10,000 in bad checks. but it was built into the price of my groceries and everybody in the neighborhood knew that. So it was a time when Eagle Place took care of Eagle Place, they took care of each other. So he was an honorable man, so I just would like to put that plug in that, that's why I like to see the building. If the builders can, and it's up to them, if they would name it the Guscott Building. Sometimes it's nice to have the building's name, so you could say, well, I'm in this building, the Guscott Building. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, we can call the vote on this item.
I vote no.
Item 718 carries on a recorded vote of 9-1. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Ventilbur, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Scully. And those councillors voting against, Councillor Martin.
Okay, so our next item to vote on. So our next item to vote, or sorry, our next item on the agenda to deal with, because there was a delegation, 7.1.9, which is the downtown facade and safety improvement grant program application for 49 Charlotte Street. Okay, seeing no raised hands, truck right along here and call the vote on that item.
I vote no.
Item 719 carries on a recorded vote of 9-1. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Ventilbur, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Scully, and those councillors voting against, Councillor Martin.
Okay, now we'll go back to taking separated items in order. So I have 7.1.1 city grants program, and Councillor Sokoli, you asked for this to be separated.
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. I see here Nova Vita is listed as discontinuing their funding as of December 31st, 2024. And I can't support us removing funding from Nova Vita in the same year that we declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. This funding, this $20,000, supports our BRAVE committee. And I want to give everyone a bit of some background on the BRAVE committee. So in 2006, the city council created a task force to look at domestic violence after some deaths in our community. And the Domestic Violence Awareness Committee was formed and was a council committee and was funded by the city of Brantford. In 2014, it was determined that there were some efficiencies that can be found because we had some duplication of services. And so the DIVA committee became a subcommittee of BRAVE. And now the BRAVE committee is really the administratively, they're overseen by Nova Vita, but they're pretty independent and they do a lot of important work in our community. They do some things that you may find familiar. They publish the refrigerator door book, which is referenced in the seniors toolkit, which is very important. They provide violence, threat, and risk assessment training. They've trained 73 community professionals in 34 different organizations, including the school board. So they provide training to both the school boards. So the ramifications of removing this funding is far-reaching, and the work that Nova Vita is doing is not alone, because there are a lot of great committees here. So I do see that these organizations will have the opportunity to apply for funding through the Brant Community Foundation, but I think that there's limitations to how much they can get. So we currently give Nova Vita $20,000, but I see here that they would only be eligible to apply for $10,000 in operating stream or $5,000 for events in the community, which would limit them to $15,000. And there's a lot of organizations who will suffer even worse than that. We have Brant Food for Thought, who currently gets $85,000 from us, and they'll be then limited to at a max 15,000. So while I appreciate the sentiment and the intention behind how we got here and removing politics from the matter, I do think that this recommendation, while we call it a community grants modernization, I think it's more of a strangulation of good organizations doing good work in the community. So when appropriate, Madam Chair, I do offer an amendment. And I'm not sure if you want me to bring that forward now or if you want to wait for others to speak.
Well, I've got 3 others in the queue, so I'm going to suggest that you bring your amendment forth so we can vote on the amendment.
Sure.
Prior to discussion on the actual item.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it now. So as I mentioned, these associations or organizations will be limited to $10,000 or $15,000 from the funding stream offered from Brant Community Foundation. So I've decided to go ahead and remove the organizations who currently receive more than that from us. So my amendment is as follows: that from clause C, we remove 1, Nova Vita, $20,000. Item 5, Brant Food for Thought at $85,000. Item 6, St. Andrew's Church, they currently receive $34,412.50. And then we have Grace Anglican, who receives $18,080. So I would like to remove all of those. And then just to balance things out in clause B, where it says that $900,000 will be allocated, I would like to strike that and change it to $742,507.50, which basically balances out the amount of money that I'm removing from by continuing the funding for those other organizations. Seeking a seconder, seconded by Councillor Samwell.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the original list, see if you'd like to speak to the amendment. So Councillor Sullivan, I had you on the original list to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd actually like to see the Senior Resource Center also taken off this list. I think this is something we need to handle individually and actually increase the allotment that they're receiving. So I don't want to include it on this either.
I'm just trying to draw a line, and because they would be eligible to receive the $10,000 through, I mean, if you want to bring something to increase that amount, we can discuss that, but because they can get $10,000, I don't see why we would keep them on the funding list.
Okay, let me rephrase. Well, then what the amendment would be to take them off and add them to your amendment and have their funding increase to 20,000 as opposed to the 10.
So I guess I need to know if that's friendly. That's friendly to the mover and the seconder. Okay. So I've now got Councillor Carpenter on the amendment.
Yeah, yes, I'm concerned about how we're doing this. Quite frankly, the organizations themselves haven't been notified at all until I sent a letter to the email to the clerk to say, can we please let these 8 organizations know that the funding model is being changed to the community foundation, that they would have to apply annually to the foundation, and then they may not receive the funds, or they may receive the funds. And so their programs, they're so valuable to our community, are in jeopardy. So I'm just a little concerned about taking it out piecemeal. I understand what Councillor Sokoli is trying to do here, and I respect that, but I would just think that the better approach for me would be to defer this one cycle, have discussion with the groups that haven't had a chance to speak to this item at all, or even be aware of it till yesterday, to talk about how the funding is going to go forward and how, what that impact is on them. I understand, Councilor Secoli knows the impact on these other organizations because she's familiar with them, but I would like to defer the whole thing. So when it comes up before the, is it appropriate to defer it with the amendment? I think it is.
Deferral is always in order.
So I'd like to defer it one cycle, looking for a seconder, but with instructions to consult with the organizations and bring back a report to council.
So I see Councilor McCreary is seconding your deferral.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got two amendments, so are you,
No, I was happy to defer it with the amendment. So when it comes back, we can deal with the amendment as well.
okay, so the deferral being on the floor means that we vote on the deferral and not anything else on the other, either the main motion or the first amendment. Okay, so any discussion on the amendment to defer? Time and place. One cycle. And Councilor. Okay, okay. So one cycle would actually be August because we don't meet in July. Okay. Okay, so I don't see any hands raised for any further discussion on the deferral till the August cycle, so we can take the vote on that.
I vote yes.
Through the chair, the vote on the referral for item 711 carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councilors voting in favor, councilors Ventilbor, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Scully.
Okay, moving right along, that takes us to 7.1.4. And Councilor Carpenter, you asked for this to be separated.
Yeah, just a question. So we're going to extend the is that 499,621 of this contract for the full 3 years? Or is that 499,000 per year?
Through the chair to the councillor, Ray Petro, manager of real estate, that's for the full 3 years.
Okay. Now, I understand that that the Brantford Flying Club has been managing the operation for many, many years, and because they run flying school out of there, is the reason that we're not going out to public tender here is because they are on the airport site, because they provide lessons in planes and so forth and how to fly, that they're able to be on site makes them actually more affordable to manage the property as opposed to going to an outside agency?
Through the chair, yes,
And that's the reason for not going to a tender here.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McCreary.
Chair, thank you. Mr. Petro, the Flying Club, they own the building that they operate from?
Through the chair, that is correct.
And because they're not doing any significant renovation in there, they're not required to be fully AODA compliant. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I'm unaware of the AODA compliance laws, but they aren't AODA compliant. I can confirm that.
Yeah, but they do have some limited accessibility issues. But that doesn't preclude us from entering into this contract with them, nor is there any real requirement, I think, for them to be fully compliant for another period of time, I guess. Would you say that's right?
My understanding of that is correct, but I would speak to legal to confirm 100%.
And they do a good job for us?
They do an exceptional job for us, in my opinion.
And there are some language things in the contract that I saw. I don't know if we still refer to the departments by the names that are in that contract. So are you going to be doing a full deep dive to make sure that when we talk about our departments and so on, that the names are correct in there?
Through the chair, we can go through that document and clean it up.
Yeah, just to make sure that we're referencing properly things that refer to City of Brantford. Yep. Thank you.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just further to Councillor Carpenter's question, last time we did a tender, we got two bids, one that was realistic from the Flying Club and one that was unrealistic. And when staff went to the companies that would normally bid on this kind of thing and asked why they didn't bid, the response was, well, we can't possibly compete with the Flying Club, they're already on site. So that's the reason for sole sourcing, is because we're not going to get any serious bids from people who want to look after the airport. And as for accessibility, the first floor is fully accessible. It's the basement that's not accessible. And that's why we've moved the airport board meetings from the basement up to the first floor, so that we can meet in a space that is accessible. And I agree with Ray that the Flying Club has been doing an exceptional job managing the airport, and I look forward to them continuing to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Sokoli.
I just want to reiterate something my father would always tell me. If it ain't broke, I'm not fixing it. And I don't think it's broke right now. I think they do a fabulous job managing the airport, and I'm happy to support the suggestion that we continue moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, then we will call the vote on this item.
I vote yes.
Item 714 carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Ventelbor, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Martin Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli.
Okay, moving on to our next item that was separated, 7.1.5, and Councillor McCreary, this was yours.
Madam Chair, if I could interject just before that, I did submit an amendment for 7.1.2, and I think we neglected to separate that. And I'm just wondering if procedurally there's a way we could easily put that back on the floor tonight. I wonder if you and the clerk could confer on how we might accomplish that.
Through the chair, I will defer to the chair, but that would, at this point, would be a reconsideration on the motion, the first motion that we voted on tonight, which was to vote on the items not separated for discussion. I'll defer to the chair and council as a whole, if they're perhaps amical to that change.
I wonder if perhaps rather than add extra workload to my coworkers tonight, if we could just ensure that that lands in our packages for council night, please. Thank you. And sorry, and now, Madam Chair, thank you. Lease of 177 Colburn Street. So we have before us the lease to Grand River Community Healthcare. I didn't notice in the agenda package specifically for what purpose they want to use our premises. Do we know that?
Good evening, Mary Musson, Director of Housing and Homelessness Services. Through the chair, Grand River Community Health Center is expanding their services, and they are looking for additional space. So they will be looking at providing healthcare services from the 177 Colburn Street West site.
That's in addition to their office down the street a ways?
That is correct.
So they would continue with the same operation there.
That is correct.
So does this, do we include taxes, maintenance, insurance with respect to their lease?
So those three items would be in addition to the base lease rate.
Okay, and common area support, is that additional as well?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, they'll pay all their proportionate share of taxes, maintenance, insurance.
Electric, water, and heat?
Through the chair, that's their own account.
Yeah, they're completely separate. And
Correct.
parking is going to be sufficient there?
Through the chair, that they have indicated that is one of the shortfalls of the location, and they are willing to work around it.
There's some street parking, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and so you're satisfied that the rates we're charging them are pretty good?
These are market rates. It's really good.
Yeah, no, good work on this stuff. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, we can take the vote on this item.
Vote yes.
Item 715 carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Ventelborg, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Scully.
Okay, the last separated item is 722, which is the Inclusive Community Plan 2023-2026 Annual Update. And I'm wondering if staff can just give us an overview. It's a very well done report and encompasses us working in collaborative partnerships with a number of organizations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aaron Wallace will give an update on this, our Director of Community and Family Services.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So, City Council endorsed a recommendation to become a UNESCO Inclusive Community in 2022. And part of the commitment that we made was to develop a plan and then, of course, to execute that plan. So in, I believe, June of 2023, we brought before Council the Inclusive Community Plan, which Council adopted. So what this is your first annual report on that plan. And as the chair indicated, it is reflective of some things we've done as a corporation, like the change to the fireworks bylaw, and some of those internal things that we do, but also a lot of work with community partners to try to show that certainly we acknowledge that the community is changing, becoming much more diverse, and working with community partners to ensure we are a welcoming community for all the communities that live within the city of Brantford. And the report does outline a number of different initiatives and projects and events that we've done in support of that. And the report also talks about some of the continuation of that work into next year. And we'll be back in a year, if not sooner, with a further update on those projects.
Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions on? Okay, seeing none, we will take the vote.
The vote yes.
Item 722 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Ventelborg, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin Celeste, Caputo, and Sullivan, noting Councillor Sicoli was out of the room at the time of the vote.
Okay, moving on to resolutions. We have 3 resolutions on the agenda this evening. Councillor Carpenter, can you please move the motion and stake your seconder for your resolution?
Yes, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Caputo. Whereas Rick Stern, who passed away in December of 2023, was a proud ambassador for Brantford. Whereas Rick Stern held many positions with various community organizations such as Brantford Rotary Club, past president, district governor, Brantford Chamber of Commerce, past president, United Way, past chair, Mohawk College, past chair and board of the Board of Governors, Jurbanski Cancer Center, the Grand River Trim Foundation, Samuel Stedman Foundation, board member, Lansdowne Children's Center, past vice chair and director, JC's board member, Grand Valley Education Society board member, Wilfrid Laurier University member of the Board of Governors and Senate. And whereas Rick Stern was also a founding donor and longtime advocate and supporter for the continued growth and success of Laurier Brantford's campus and Laurier Brantford YMCA. Whereas Rick Stern had a long and successful career as a business executive at Stearnson's Limited in Brantford, as well as starting his own business in Brantford at DataSystem. Whereas DataSystem Incorporated, which began a small team working out of his basement, went on to grow to offer employment to many people in Brantford and surrounding area for over 2 decades, becoming a multinational software company. Whereas Rick Stern was also served as director of the Brantford Hydro and the Brantford Generation Company, and was a member of the Social Security Tribunal of Canada. Whereas Rick Stern was not the only member, but part of the 3 generations of Stern family to contribute their time and energy towards bettering this community. And whereas the City of Brantford Policy Corporate 48 Municipal Street Naming Policy, which allows for individuals who have been of public service to the City of Brantford to be recognized and honored by having a street named after them. Whereas the use of the street naming to honor individuals should be posthumous honor. Now therefore be resolved that staff be directed to consult with Brantford Fire Services and the County of Brant to ensure that there are no conflicts or concerns with including the name Stern on the list of approved street names list for the City of Brantford, and that subject to recommendation A, that the name Stern be added to the approved street name list, and that subject to recommendations B, the name Stern be prioritized for use in the industrial subdivision in Brantford, and that necessary by law to amend policy Corporate 48, treatment policy, to implement recommendation C be presented to council for adoption. And just speaking to it, was some time ago that I consulted with my colleagues whether I should even talk about this, but we had a Rotary event at the Lamb, sorry, not the Lamb, at Mann's on West Street, Ward 4. And it ended up, it's close to my home, so I was able to actually have more than one drink there. And Rick and I ended up closing the place. We had long conversations about city's future and how the good things that we were doing. He's always been a great mentor. And he asked me the question, why isn't there a street named after Stern? And I sort of shrugged it off a little bit. And then when I went home, I did some research on the Stern family. And not only just what Rick has contributed, but the Sternsons was here. They started their contribution to the city in 1896. They've been here for 3 generations. And there's a 4th generation, Rick Stern's son, Eric, who's about to be the next president this month of Rotary. So that legend keeps going. And it just as a shock to everyone when Rick passed suddenly, what was considered a minor operation, but with complications. We lost Rick, and I just thought it would be appropriate that we name a street name after him, specifically, if we can, an industrial street, because he was an industrialist and created so much jobs for this community. I just say that everywhere Rick went, he spoke positively about Brantford. You could never get him to say a negative word if he tried. He loved Brantford. It was his community, and everything he did was for this community and to benefit this community in every possible way. So, and I know there's an amendment coming. I will accept that. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair, and Councillor Carpenter, very, very well said. Rick Stern was one of the first persons that I met when I moved to Brantford, and he had great conversations with me. He asked me who I was. We talked about various things. He was an absolute true gentleman, and that's exactly the way he was his entire life. Rick made everything about you. If you saw him on the street, it was always, how are you? What's up with you? What are you working on? What's happening? Never made anything about himself. And that's basically a very, very excellent trait to have, especially when you're as successful as he has been in his career and his life. To make things about other people really shows about your character, your conduct, and your conversation. The accomplishments that he had made to the city of Brantford. And as Councillor Carpenter said, his love for this city is unparalleled. And he's surely going to be missed. He's a great humanitarian. And I think that it'd be an honor to be able to be a part of having Stern in the city of Brantford forever, not only for his family, but as a street. So I hope everyone supports this and look forward to the amendment.
Councillor McCreary.
Madam Chair, if appropriate, I'll introduce the amendment now.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'll need a seconder because I know this is going to be accepted as friendly. So I'll just read the amendment. Clause A, that Councillors Carpenter and McCreary be directed to prepare and present an application to the Prominence Point Subcommittee to recognize Mr. Stern on the Prominence Point wall, and B, that staff be directed to report back regarding a required budget to proceed during 2024-25 with recognition of Mr. Stern and other outstanding approved nominees.
And that's friendly.
And Madam Chair, I'll just go on a bit then, speaking to the amendment, sorry, the resolution as amended. My connection to Rick goes a long way back to when I worked in the family business down on Mohawk Street for a couple of summers while I was a student. And then on my return, I was introduced to Rick, and he's been a client and a friend and a constituent for quite some time now. And he's, I can't speak more than what Rick and Gino have spoken to with respect to the man's character. And it's a shame that he's gone from us. It was a shock, as Councillor Carpenter indicated. And I think it's highly appropriate that we recognize him in these fashions. We are diverging from our street naming policy, but I think it's a welcome and deserved divergence. And I fully support that. And I look forward to working with Councillor Carpenter to put together his bio and present that to the Prominence Point Subcommittee in we can get his picture and his bio up on that wall alongside the other learned and significant contributors to Brantford Brant's history these past 100 and some odd years. Thank you for that, Madam Chair.
And I'll just add, in my 3 decades of volunteer service in this community that I've worked with and alongside Rick in almost all of these capacities that are laid out here, but specifically the Grand Valley Education Society, I really want to acknowledge the fact that it was the Grand Valley Education Society that at the time was under the umbrella of Enterprise Brant that brought Laurier here to Brantford. And so I think from a legacy perspective, that is something that none of us can deny, that the legacy of having Laurier Brantford here was a direct result of the work that was done by that committee. Councillor McCreary.
Madam Chair, thank you. And you reminded me of something. I was remiss in not mentioning that Laurier Brantford also honored Rick with a plaque on the wall as you go in the One Market Street entrance. It's on the left-hand side. And I was pleased to sort of represent this crowd there at the unveiling of that testimony. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, take the vote on that.
Item 8.1 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Ventilbrook, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Solomon, and Scully.
Okay, moving on to resolution 8.2, concerns regarding cell phone service in West Brant. Councillor Sullivan, can you please move the motion and state your seconder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sicoli. Whereas members of council directly receive complaints from the residents and businesses regarding the quality and lack of reliable cellular service in certain areas of the city. And whereas city staff experience similar challenges with respect to reliable cellular service in certain areas of the city and negatively impact staff working at municipal facilities in these areas of concern. And whereas the city is seeing unprecedented growth with over approximately 4,800 housing units in registered plans, draft plans, and council approval applications, it is anticipated there will be an increase in the demand of cellular services. And whereas the lack of reliable and consistent cellular coverage affects the safety, convenience, and productivity of the citizens and businesses, and whereas members of council recognize the importance of ensuring all areas of the city have access to adequate and reliable cellular service, especially in times of emergency or crisis. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the council are directing city staff work in conjunction with the mayor's office to send a letter to the major cellular network providers operating in the city, namely Bell, Rogers, and TELUS, requesting that they provide a response on the current status of their cellular network coverage, capacity, and performance in the city, as well as plans and timelines for improving the service quality in the newly developed areas of Brantford. And speaking to this, initially, when I first brought this forward, I thought of this as a West Brant issue because obviously being out in West Brant, we have a lot of dead zones and drop zones. However, I realize that also you have it over in the Johnston Road area, you have it up in the north areas. There's a lot of areas where the reception is awful, and especially if you're walking any of our trails. Now, I do know that there is a plan to put a cell tower on top of the water tower out in West Brant, but that's not going to be sufficient. We require more service coverage with the growth expectation that's coming. And I think it's vitally important that we know that the major providers' plans. Thank you.
Councillor Sicoli.
Yeah, and just speaking in support of this and thanking Councillor Sullivan for drafting this up, but it's definitely an issue in West Brant. I'll speak for, I know this is citywide, but I'll speak to the residents of Ward 1. It's an email that I get frequently about the cell phone coverage, particularly with Bell out in West Brant. And I'll just ask for patience from anyone trying to contact myself or Councillor Sullivan, because we both have Bell cell phones in West Brant So if you live there, if you know, you know. But it's quite challenging to operate, and especially in this day and age where nobody really has landlines anymore, and there's, you know, children at home and who require reliable cell service, especially for emergency services. So this is very important, and definitely you will have my support with this tonight. Thank you.
Seeing no other raised hands, we will call the vote.
Item 8.2 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Venkelbord, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Salas, Caputo, Sullivan, and Sicoli.
Okay, moving on to 8.3 Heritage District Consultation for Erie Ave. Councillor Samwell, can you please move the motion and state your seconder?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Van Tilborg. Whereas Erie Avenue is a historic thoroughfare which runs through the heart of Eagle Place community, and whereas historic roads like Erie Avenue were the focus of early development in and around Brantford, and whereas development along Erie Ave can be traced back to the 1800s, and whereas Erie Avenue displays a range of historic residential and commercial development trends from the 1800s through the 1950s, and whereas the historic character of Erie Ave has been maintained in some stretches for over a century, and whereas the Ontario Heritage Act gives municipalities the authority to designate properties for their cultural heritage value or interest, either individually or collectively, through the establishment of a heritage conservation district. Now therefore it be resolved that staff be directed to consult with the owners of the properties along Erie Avenue with respect to their interest in the establishment of a heritage conservation district, and B, that the consultation include properties on both sides of Erie Ave bounded by and including 60 and 62 Erie Avenue to the north and Burkitt's Lane to the south, and that the form of consultation occur in the same manner that has been planned for the other neighborhoods where property owners are being consulted on their interest in the establishment of a heritage conservation district, and that staff report back to council by the end of Q 2024 with the results of the community consultation, and that any costs incurred to provide the mailouts and rent facilities be funded from the council priorities reserve to a maximum of $500. And just speaking to that, I really wanted to talk about the fact that Erie Ave is in the same light as we would look at Brant Avenue. There's a lot of history there, and it's worth looking at and seeing how we can conserve that. I wanted to also speak to that. I know that it doesn't list the Heritage Committee on here, but it will be going to the Heritage Committee following the consultation. That's how that'll be handled. And I hope that everybody can support this community consultation tonight. We're not asking anybody to designate anything tonight. We're just looking to consult with the community and give them their voice and discuss whether they would like to see Erie Ave as a heritage district. Thank you.
Councillor Sicoli.
This will probably be no surprise, Councillor Samwell. I won't be supporting this tonight for a few reasons. Number one, because I'm consistent, and I will never vote to move forward with designating anything without 100% of all the affected properties approval, and I doubt we'll get that. Number two, we mentioned Brant Ave, and so timely that we have this conversation because we just discussed the challenges that we're having on Brant Ave where traffic is concerned, and we are handcuffed with the upgrades and the updates that we can make on Brant Ave because it's a heritage district. And I just think with where the arena might end up, there's probably going to be a lot of traffic flow in that area, and we really should keep our options open. Number three, Erie Ave is an intensification corridor, and that makes absolute sense to me that it grow in an appropriate fashion to the rest of the community. Point number four, if nothing changes, then nothing changes and communities end up stagnant. And so I don't think that it's appropriate that we just completely preserve this entire strip of properties when there's opportunity to grow and make improvements for that neighborhood. Number 5, there's always unforeseen circumstances to the surrounding properties when we look at designating. So if we designate this street, well, now all of the abutting properties are going to see some limitations to what they're able to do, and I just will never support that. So thank you so much, Councillor Samuel, for bringing this forward, but I don't think this is a surprise to anyone that I won't be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yeah, I understand where Council Secoli comes from, and I'm loath to support heritage without the owner's support and consent. But I'm always in favor of the ward councillor being able to seek opinions from their constituents. And if they need some assistance in doing that, which is what this resolution is asking for, then I'm happy to support consistent. I'll always support the ward councillors when they're asking for consultation with public, specifically their ward constituents. So I will support this at this point. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Well, I really don't know what else I'm supposed to say here. I know that Councillor Samuel and I had this conversation, and her concept was pretty much what my views to heritage, and my views to heritage aren't changed. But and what isn't changing from it is that it belongs in the hands of the residents. And I've said that all along, and I say that continuously. There's a lot of arguments to be made either way, but I will support this evening because, again, the residents of the area have an opportunity to speak. So let's hear them and see what they have to say.
Councillor McCreary.
Madam Chair, thank you. Quite frankly, I am shocked at Councillor Secoli's position. I must say that, just for her benefit. I'm very happy to support this today. I'm really pleased that Councillor Samuel has brought this today, and I'm pleased that Councillor Van Tilburg is supportive. Erie Ave has been designated an intensification corridor. However, it's a pretty skinny corridor, and it's going to be very difficult to see any sort of intensive development on Erie Ave on a 2-lane street. Those of you familiar with Erie Ave can be assured that it'll never be anything grander than a 2-lane street. There just is not the room without taking people's front stoops off their houses in some parts. And Erie Ave it really is an amalgam of the development of the city of Brantford from its earliest beginnings in the little center of town, going out to the last toll bridge in the city of Brantford and the county of Brant. It's ripe with history. And you can see the development since 1877 on that street, places like the Creamery and the Castle, which reflect the earliest development on Erie Ave. And then you look at the progression of infill throughout the last 100 years, and you can see houses on Erie Ave that were built in the 70s. And you know, when you think of a heritage district, a heritage street, Erie Ave really isn't the model like Dufferin Avenue is or Brant Avenue was before that abomination was built on the corner, which caused it to become a heritage district. You see this ripe, rich tapestry of development there, of the lives lived by people. You look at the little barber shop where I got my hair cut when I was 5 years old, had to put me on a board so the barber could reach my hair. You know, there's those anecdotes, like Councillor Carpenter's anecdote about Gordon Guscott. And I think that's the tapestry that we need to explore here. I know Councillor Samuel has heard from a lot of residents. I know Councillor Van Tilburg has heard from a lot of residents, and that's why it's here today. So I would encourage everybody here to give this a shot, okay? Let it go forward, and let's hear what the neighborhood says, and then it's going to come back to us, and we can decide then. But let's have that discussion, because I know, like I do, everyone here in the room respects the viewpoint of the ward councillors and respects the ward councillors' insight into their neighborhood. So let's give it a chance, folks. Let's give heritage a chance.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do you follow up that orchestra? I too will be supporting Councillor Samuel's motion here, only for the fact that it allows the residents to speak. Even if this doesn't end up going anywhere, we can get some vital feedback on particular homes that want to be designated as heritage homes, which can help anyways on the Heritage Registry. So I think this is a no-lose situation at this point, and it's not going to really cost us anything to explore it.
Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to support this, and I congratulate Councillor Samwell for bringing this forward. We're not approving anything tonight other than to go and talk to folks, and I think that's all we're doing. If the folks have an inclination to be designated, it's good to know that. A lot of folks probably don't really understand how the process works, but if someone goes out and talks to them, they might very well be inclined to have their property designated and you know, save some building that otherwise might be in jeopardy. So like I said, I don't normally support things that are forced upon people, but I don't think we're forcing people to have a conversation here, and we're certainly not doing anything to their property at all until we've had that conversation and then see where it goes from there. But again, I'm pleased to support it, and I congratulate the ward councillors for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Yes, I want to thank my ward mate for bringing this forward. I'm happy to support her in this motion. It really did come though from the community, just asking for what can we do? How can we look at this street? I think everybody in the Eagle Place area recognizes there is something special about Erie Ave. I've even heard more comments today, and that was on a topic totally different. So I just found that isn't what's on the people's mind. So I'm very happy to have them give their say, their input, and look at what the options are. And of course, one of the things as in early on in those conversations that we were just having ad hoc with various members of communities at different meetings is when the concept of, well, what did they do on Brant Ave? And so it was like, okay, Brant Ave is like that. Brant Ave is also an intensification corridor. So the differences between, you know, is an apartment building limited to 4 stories versus 6 stories, things like that. And we've already seen where we've had some contention. So if we look at what that area is, how it should be, and if the people are willing to embrace it, then I'm more than happy to help them embrace it. And if they say, hey, this isn't for us, you know, I don't have any stake in this game at all. I'm there to support what the community wants.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make a few comments. I certainly am supporting it because I am a big proponent of anything that this council does, that we go out and that we actually consult with the community, and A, B, C, and D all have the words either consult or consultation in them. And really for $500, I don't think that there's anything bad about going out and having that kind of community consultation. So I too am pleased to support it. Seeing no other raised hands, we will call the vote.
Item 8.3 carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Carpenter McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, and Spalding.
Okay, we have no notice of motion on tonight's agenda. Please note that the notice of motion deadline for the next council agenda is Thursday, May 23rd at 9 a.m. And on that, this meeting is now adjourned.